in charge of Stretch English, and you'll notice Nguyen, sitting here with the headset on, who is now fussing with the equipment because she's checking sound levels. Okay, we are recording this. That is the way we make our transcript and study word frequencies to figure out values. She may be asking you to speak up, or mostly she's going to try to adjust the equipment, not you. But but you never know. And
I'm Richard McNabb, and I'm the writing program administrator.
I'm Krista Bailey. I'm a business librarian at the library.
I'm Laura Perazzi, and I'm a lecturer in child and adolescent development.
Hi, I'm Taylor. I'm a fourth-year nursing student.
And I'm Rebecca Tedesco. I'm the tutor coordinator in Peer Connections.
I'm Agumi Kamikawa. I'm an English creative writing major, and I work at the Writing Center.
Hi, my name is Kartika Shashikumar. I'm an associate professor in political science.
very nice mix of people. Thank you all for agreeing to be part of the focus group. We really wanted to have a nice sampling of all of the different roles on campus, and I think we've got that today. So that's really great. All of you have signed the consent form. All of you have your numbers. So I'm just going to launch into a little bit of a story, and then Richard will fill in some of the details. So what we're doing here today. Oh, let me get this into a slideshow first. So what we're doing here today is we're exploring our collective values around writing. We are members of the SJSU learning community, and writing is a big part of how students learn. And how we value writing is part of what students adjust to when they come to college. And what we're interested in today is how students make their adjustments into the new value system for the new learning community and its values around writing. So I want to take a minute to explain to you how the placement system before the summer of 2016 worked, and then contrast that with what we have in place now so that you better understand, have a little historical context on that. So it has to do with the difference between placement and transfer. A student graduates high school, ready for college, a head full of all the stuff that he's learned in high school, right? That student applies and is admitted to SJSU and decides to enroll here, bringing with him whatever he has retained as valuable from that prior experience. Right? He carries that with him, and he comes with us to study. And we're over here, and as I said, the student has to make a transition. We'll get everybody situated here. Yeah. Hi. Has to make a transition, right, over to a new value system. So the question becomes, how do we greet this student, right? How do we greet this student and welcome the student into a new learning community? One answer is placement, and the English placement test that we used to use, a California State University mandated, locally delivered test, was the answer before. And it's a really good example of how placement typically works. We believe, when we believe we can place students, we believe that we can measure students to see how far or they achieve or fall short of our values, and then we can make sure they get the appropriate remediation if they've fallen short, right? That sort of placement operates by a complicated set of proxies. The CSU administration assigns certain faculty in the field of writing, in this case, to represent all of their colleagues and to study what we value. Right? This English Placement Test Subcommittee, CSU English Placement Test Subcommittee, defines what they called a narrow band of academic literacy competencies. And they devise an exam, the EPT exam, to test for those competencies. So we have two proxies in play, right? The state subcommittee stands in for us, the faculty, and the exam, with its narrow band of competencies registered, stands in for the student. So we're trying to get these two groups to talk to each other. You see the proxies, right? The final proxy comes in, because we're not done yet, with this third group of people, and that is those who score the exam. Because they are not us either. They are ETS trained readers, trained to recognize this narrow band of competencies which supposedly we valued in the first place. Those are the proxies, right? So the score now stands in for the student and for us, and we figure out whether they've fallen short or not. That is one answer, placement. The other answer is to focus on transfer. So you still have the same story of the student who comes to us head full of stuff he's learned and retaining what he's valued. You have us over here and you have what we value. You have the same problem, but we have a different solution. So what we do now is we ask them to go onto Canvas from wherever they are in the summer, and we ask them to complete something called the Reflection on College Writing, right, which is a series of modules. We ask the student to sit down and answer some questions to reflect on that head full of knowledge and value that he brings with him, and try to solve a new writing problem and figure out how that applies. And we ask them specifically to think about, who am I as a writer and a reader? How will I use reading at SJSU? How will I use writing at SJSU? What are the requirement options? What course is best for me? And as the student works through several modules in Canvas to explore those questions, we record answers in writing, and you'll see some of that writing today. That's what you're looking at. So the process in this case yields a student's course choice by having them explore their own value system while doing an exercise we created locally. That's how it's operating. That's how it operates now. And that's what you'll see today. Questions? Placement versus transfer. Okay. Let's end that slideshow. There we go. And I will hide that one.
So just to explain, in case you're not familiar with the kind of steps that students take. So when they enter SJSU, all incoming students have to take a first-year writing course, and the only way they're exempt from that is if they took it in community college or a high AP test score, and then they get exempt from GE area A2. And so, but the students who are not exempt from A2, so when they come in, they have a choice. So we offer two different courses, English 1A, which is a one semester course. And then we offer Stretch English, which is English 1A, but it's stretched over 2 semesters. So students, after they do the Reflection on College Writing, and they decide that they need more time, more support, then they can opt into Stretch English. And it's not just students who were previously designated remedial that were taking Stretch. Some of them, yes, some international students, but a lot of students whose EPT exam that Cindy just explained, that would have placed them in 1A, also chose to take Stretch, and also vice versa. Students who were deemed college ready chose to, or who were deemed that they needed or considered remedial, chose to take English 1A and did just as successfully as other students. So when they enter, they have a choice of what course to take. For students who are exempt from A2, then they choose their second writing course. And after these students successfully complete English 1A, they move on to their next writing course. So they have a choice between English 1B and English 2. And the second writing course on campus is the GE Area A3, Critical Thinking and Writing. We're not the only department that offers an A3 course, linguistics, history, philosophy, so students can choose to take their second writing course in another department as well. But so if they stay with us, they either choose English 1B or English 2. English 1B is designated specifically for engineers. They wanted their students to take a second semester writing course, but they couldn't take English 2 because they get an A3 waiver. So we developed a course for them. And then after they take these 2 courses, then they take the writing skills test. And then if they pass that, then and this process is changing as well. But once they pass that, then they take their 100W course. Anyway, so this is kind of the progression that students go through in terms of taking writing courses on campus.
And this is one of the reasons we wanted to have a nice sampling of people across the campus, right? Because writing happens in almost every course, but the student also has to succeed as a writer in courses that may not be in the English department. So, and you'll see later on when we show you the results for the students you're looking at that we're tracking them at every level as we move through the data. Questions?
So just to clarify, do they have, in order to enroll in in order to take the WST, do they have to have completed this sequence of 2 writing courses? So that's a requirement.
Mm-hmm. But not only that, but they also have to have achieved 60 units. So,
Okay.
right, so a lot of them, will end up finishing their second writing course long before they actually get to
Right.
take the WST.
So they're taking 24 units a year.
Oh, wait a minute, they can't take their I'm sorry, I misspoke. They can't take their 100W course until they have 60 units.
Oh,
They
yeah,
can do
no,
the
I knew that.
WST. I'm
Right,
sorry.
right,
Yeah.
So sorry, the reason I'm asking is because I'm also the advisor for the department, and one of the things I always tell students is you need to take the WST because they kind of forget about it since
Right,
it's
right,
not a
right,
course, right?
right.
And so I was wondering if those 2 courses, the first and second writing course, are required to be completed before they can even take the WST.
Yeah, they are. But I don't know that there's a mechanism to check that they don't.
Right?
Because
I
I've
would-
had students, I've seen students' records where they are in an A3 course, but they've already taken the WST. So, yeah. But it's advisable to students not to take the WST until
Right,
they've
it's
taken
better for
those 2
them if
courses,
they- yeah.
right? Yeah. So that's what we advise them to do at the end of 1A, is we advise them into a second semester course, and then we tell them at the end of that course they should take the WST. That's the best advice.
And I've also heard that depending on their score in the WST, they may not need to take 100W.
There are some departments that offer a waiver,
Not many, but there are some.
and you have to get like a 12 on the exam, which means a
Yeah.
perfect score.
Yeah.
Like both readers have to give you a 6. And then the department decides whether they consider that a waiver or not.
I also forgot to mention that students can take humanities if they don't want to do, if they qualify.
Mhm.
They don't have to take English 1A, they can take humanities 1A and 1B.
Yeah, in fact, if they complete the whole sequence, they complete both of their writing courses, their lower division writing courses. There. So you want to talk about it?
Yeah, can you go back to your, did you fill it out?
I don't probably can.
So before we start reading the decision paragraphs and moving on towards having you read the portfolios,
This one? No, the canvas.
the Canvas one. One of the things I thought would be useful as to kind of help frame our reading of the student essays is to kind of talk about what we to kind of talk about what we currently value about writing, because the goal is to kind of see how students, what they value, how it matches up with our expectations of what we value as writers. So I thought maybe we could just spend, just like 5 minutes just kind of talking about, we all write in this room. It might not be, articles, but we all write, we all look at student writing. So we thought, probably better over there because there's, so what are some of the things that you value as a writer? Because remember, the values have been kind of, previously they've been imposed on students by these proxies that says this is what we value in you as a writer. And so I thought it would be helpful for us to discuss what we value as writers. And you can define value in many different ways.
Shout it. Writing as thinking.
So I'm in political science, and most of my students don't go on to be professors, but they go on to have roles in policy. And so I think for me it's really important that they have a sense of audience when they're writing, so that they're not writing a memo to the president that sounds like they're chatting with somebody, which happens actually in that assignment.
So I heard you say non-academic, like they're not going to go on to be professors, so they don't have to have an academic.
Well, I
but
mean,
want them to be
it's
professional.
rare.
Yeah.
I think in my department as a whole, we don't try to train them to write, the 30-page research papers that are common in our discipline. We are aware of what their usual career path is, and so we try to train them more to be working in practical politics.
So professional, practical. Mm-hmm.
Critically thinking about the sources that inform their writing.
Critically,
Thinking
yes.
about the sources that inform their writing. Both academic and non-academic, I would say.
Thoughtfully organizing the reader.
Okay. Chair jail or something.
They've run spell check.
Okay.
So for myself, I journal a lot. So as a writer myself, I value self-expression in writing. But as a reader of writing and teaching, I also agree with sense of audience, spell check, grammar. Even if they're not going to go on to be writers, they're going to send emails to people. It's hard to take you seriously if you can't write properly.
So self-expression, this is as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know?
I'd say for like research papers, newfound knowledge.
So 4 research papers you found?
Yeah, that's mostly what I end up writing.
Newfound knowledge, you want them to have newfound knowledge?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can I just ask for clarification? So the question, what we value when we're writing ourselves, or what we would like to see when we read others writing? Or are you purposely leaving it very open?
That's right. So is there something, when you answered before, were you answering as a writer yourself or as a reader?
That was the only one that I could think of that was for both, which is why I said that one. I
Which
didn't know
one
what you were
was it?
looking.
The
Writing is thinking.
Writing is thinking. Okay, so this actually applies to both, and so that's interesting, right? So your answer might change if you're a reader as opposed to a writer. So play with that a little bit. What else? Did you come up with anything that you value?
I was kind of thinking branching off of critical thinking. Like as a tutor, it's really easy to see that people are just writing for academic purposes. But then when you walk them through, like explaining the whys and the hows of writing, like you really get to see that they're able to process the information better for themselves. And also as a writer, self-expression is really important. So I kind of try to blend those together.
So writing for academic purposes.
Yeah, like within academic writing, like to kind of meld together self-expression and critical thinking to get them to better process the information for themselves rather than just for the reader.
Anything else?
I guess I would add accuracy, because I'm thinking not so much about my writing, I guess, but more, well, actually even my writing, but for example, when I'm giving feedback to students on their writing, I recently took a workshop, I believe it was with your colleagues in the English department, that changed my mind about how I give feedback, because I realized that my feedback, though well-intentioned, wasn't really useful for the students to move on to their second draft where they would improve their writing. But also in terms of when students are writing, they often tend to use a word that means, that's ambiguous, especially in politics, words have a lot of power, and they might use a word that they think means something, but actually could be misunderstood.
Or use the wrong word.
Yeah, but I mean, usually it's because they're trying to sound more sophisticated.
And they don't look it up.
Yeah, I recognize actually the pattern that if they'd stuck to what was in their heads, it would probably sound better, but they try to use a different phrase, and then it's just confusing.
I would add use of prior knowledge. So if it's self-expressive writing, then just how they're processing their knowledge. So it could be personal experience, it could be what they've read, it could be what they bring from their experience as adult learners. Generally, we write with some kind of prior knowledge.
Yes. Okay. So let me push you to think also about, because what I'm hearing is a lot of conversation around, from a group of people who are used to reading student work and helping students improve their work. So let me push the other end of that, right? So the other side of it was, what about for you and you personally? What do you value as a writer yourself?
Purpose, sense of purpose.
Sense of purpose.
Why am I sitting down to write? What am I allowed to do? And I also look for
What
that
am I
as
allowed?
what am I about to write? What am I doing? And I value that with students too, and with 2 T's.
Did you say what am I allowed to do, or what am I about to do?
About. I don't care what I'm allowed to do. Related to writing. Yeah.
I'm gonna write that down. I don't care what I'm allowed to do.
In terms of writing, just in terms of writing.
That's okay, we won't stick the class up or anything. Do you wanna,
Add something?
do you want them to prompt them for anything else, or?
Oh, no, this is.
This is what you're,
yeah.
okay. Anything else? Anything else you need as a writer, want as a writer, value as a writer? I mean, think about what do you value as a writer? Yeah.
Clear instructions.
Clear instructions.
Time.
Time.
Meaningful feedback.
Meaningful feedback. Yeah. It's not a test, you know, so don't worry if there isn't anything else, it's okay.
Maybe like collaboration or an opportunity to share your work when you've really worked hard on something that you've written and you want to share it with other people, having that opportunity.
Does any of that resonate?
Can I have one more?
Yeah, sure, let's keep going.
I'm kind of a ringer because I studied literacy in graduate school. Self-reflection.
Self-reflection. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking the other side of the coin. If you don't want to share, sometimes the purpose is for your own metacognition and reflection. And sometimes you do that reflective work and then you do want to share it, so it could really be.
Okay, but it's important to do that, and you said metacognition, right? And we look for overlapping your language of value and students' language of value. My guess is we're not going to see a lot of that, but I think you might see the concept in there, yeah. So, anything else to add? Are you ready to explore their values? You feel like you've got some ideas about what you value? That's what we wanted to do. It's just kind of like, you know, get you thinking about what do you value about writing, about as a writer, as a reader. Okay. So our very first activity is to read the paragraphs, but there's one more survey that I'd like you to do. There's a second survey, and I think you might need to do the first one. So if we go to the modules, how do you value time as a writer? Students were, in fact, I'll let you read it because it says this, but the students were asked to choose Stretch or English 1A. And not surprisingly, one of the things they talked about a lot was about how they value time.
So Stretch is the 1AF/S? Is that what
Yes.
Stretch- Okay.
Yes. Stretch is and the reason for that is that the F is fall and the S is spring.
Oh.
So it's just 1A stretched over fall and spring. Yeah. Yeah, that's the way we explain it. Yes. So go ahead and do that survey. And then around 9 o'clock we'll start the next activity.
But do they have the same number of units
They get six units.
for Stretch?
Yeah.
And only 3 for 1A?
Correct.
Mhm.
And 3 of those units, they're in Stretch. 3 of the units are for A2, and then the other 3 go as electives.
Okay.
University elective.
Can I ask a quick question about the credits? So does that mean that Stretch is more expensive than 1A?
They're paying for 3 more units.
Right.
Well, unless they can count the elective units within their major, within their 120. Some high unit majors, it's more expensive. Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
something that the students learn when they're making the decision? Whether
Yes, they figure that out.
They
Mhm.
figure it out.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah. They worry about and there are advisors for them to talk to in orientation before they sign up. Just not like they're, yeah. Mhm.
Since I totally went to the wrong place, what's my participant group number?
Oh, I'm sorry, she chose that.
Okay.
2.